In this lesson, we're going to learn how to multiply fractions. Here's our first example, 5/6 times 4/15. Now, when we're multiplying fractions, just remember that we just want to multiply across and simplify. So just remember that. By multiply across, we mean that we're going to multiply the numerators together and multiply the denominators together. So our numerators are 5 and 4. If we multiply those, we get 20. And then we multiply across for the denominators the same way. 6 times 15 gives us 90. And now we want to see if we can simplify our answer. 20 and 90 do have a common factor of 10, and we can tell because they both end in a 0. So if we divide both the numerator and denominator by 10, this fraction simplifies to 2/9. So that's our final simplified answer. Now we're going to look at the same example but using a slightly different strategy. And this time we're going to factor the parts of each fraction first, simplify it, and then multiply. With this strategy, it's like we're simplifying the fraction first instead of waiting till the end to simplify it. So if we take a look at that first fraction, 5/6, we want to see if there's any part of that fraction that can be factored. Well, 5 is a prime number, so we're not going to do anything with that. But 6 can be factored into 2 times 3. And then we do the same process for the second fraction. The 4 in the numerator can be factored into 2 times 2, and the 15 can be factored into 3 times 5. So it will look like this. And of course, we're multiplying these fractions together. Now remember, these still represent the same fractions, the same numbers, but they're just factored out. Okay, the next step, all I'm going to do is take both of these fractions and put them together in one big fraction to show everything being multiplied together. So both numerators multiply together and both denominators multiply together. And here's what it looks like. Okay. Now our next step is to see if there's any factor, any number that's in the numerator and denominator. If so, those two factors will cancel each other out. So for example, we see a 5 in the numerator and a 5 in the denominator. They will cancel each other out. And the idea is that 5/5 as a fraction is really just equal to 1. So it would be like we're multiplying by 1. That's the concept. But just remember, whenever you see a factor in the numerator and denominator, you can just cross them out. And let's see what else we have. We have a 2 in the numerator and denominator that will cancel each other out. Now notice the other 2 in the numerator does not cancel out because we don't have another 2 in the denominator. So we can just cancel one of those out. And then now to see what our final answer is, we want to see what's left over in our numerator and denominator. Now the only number that we have left in the numerator is the 2. In the denominator though, we have 3 times 3. So remember, these are factors and we can multiply them together. So the 3 times 3 in the denominator will change to just 9. So we have the 2 that's left in the numerator, and then in the denominator we have 3 times 3, which is 9. So our final answer, just like we got the other way, is 2/9. So now you have two different strategies for multiplying the fractions. But either way, we want to make sure that if the fractions that we're given start off as mixed fractions, you always want to change them to improper fractions first. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you start off with a mixed fraction, change it to an improper fraction first. And then we just multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators together, right? Just multiply across. If the fractions need to be simplified, we can either simplify the answer at the end after we're done multiplying, which we saw with the first example, or the second way was to factor every part of each fraction and cancel out any common factors that we see in the numerator and denominator, and then multiply to see what our final answer will be. So you have two different strategies that you can use when multiplying fractions.